Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 101.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have an interview with Rob Aeschbach. He is a financial planner who specializes in working with military families, and he also has a long personal history with the military. And we're going to talk to him today about how we can use the military to help pay for college. There's a number of different programs out there, and I think this is an opportunity to hear from someone that's lived the military lifestyle. I know there's a lot of families out there where you may be immediately thinking, well, the military is just not for us. And that's okay. If you have no interest in the military, this episode's probably not for you. If, however, you're thinking about ROTC or the GI Bill or other avenues to help pay for college, this is a great introduction and kind of getting the perspective from somebody that's actually been in the military versus, my very, very limited experience with the military. And so kind of getting a different perspective, because there's a lot of families out there that are pro-military. There's a lot of families out there that are anti-military. But I think the military is a great avenue for families to defray the cost of college. Again, for the right student. If it's not your thing, then maybe you move on to the next episode. But if you have any interest in learning about how the military may work, this is a great interview with Rob. As well, we have additional episodes. Episode 42. We cover ROTC and have a great interview there. And episode 46 is the GI Bill and how to transfer the GI Bill if you're a parent, and you may be able to transfer the GI Bill to your student, or just using the GI Bill in general. So those are additional military resources as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview with Rob. All right, today I'm sitting down with Rob Aeschbach. He is a financial planner that specializes in helping members of the military with their overall financial planning. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, thanks.
Before we jump into what we want to talk about today, which is college and the military, can you tell us a little bit about your own story and how you came to be doing what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I went to the Naval Academy after high school, the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and I was commissioned in the Marine Corps. I served 12 years in active duty in the Marine Corps. Then I got out and continued to serve in the reserves. By that time, I married my wife, who's in the Navy. She's still active duty. And so we were still continuing the military lifestyle while she's on active duty. And during some of my downtime at home, taking care of the kids, I decided I wanted to pursue this idea of financial planning, starting a financial planning firm. And the natural fit for me just seemed to be with helping out military families, since that's what I know the most. So I was commissioned 26 years ago, 1990. And so basically, ever since then, I've been living the military life, either active duty reserves or as a spouse. And I've been doing I started the financial planning firm almost 2 years ago. And it's been pretty good.
So let's, start there. So as far as your financial planning and the military, what are some of the big categories or issues that you see with, I know there's like a military retirement. So what are some of the things that military need to do the same or different than your average person?
There's a few different things. One is, just getting some basic financial education. We have a very young force. Most of our service members are, basically in their 20s or early 30s. And a lot of them are getting a regular paycheck for the first time. And so basically they don't know what to do with it. And some of them end up spending too much on a car, and that causes trouble later, or they don't realize that they should be saving for retirement, and it's not really a priority for them because they're 19 years old, and not thinking about retirement yet. Or sometimes, some of the things that make sense for other people, buy a house as soon as you can. It doesn't make sense for the military because you're gonna be moving, and you're not gonna be able to. If you buy a house and move, you're not gonna be able to make the money back on the transaction costs all the time. So those are just some of the things.
Okay, so I guess one of the primary reasons I wanted to talk to you is I've got parents occasionally that bring up the military as a way to help defray the cost of college. And for a lot of families who don't have a lot of experience with the military, that sometimes those ideas are a little bit scary, where their initial reaction is, no way, that's not a path we're interested in. And of course, other families are more open to it. But I guess I'd like to learn a little bit more, from your perspective, how the military can be used to pay for college and what you might tell parents that are looking at it. So let's start there. What are the ways that you can pay for college using the military?
Most of the officers are going to be college graduates. And so you could go to one of the military academies, one of the federal service academies, like the Military Academy in West Point, Naval Academy in Maryland, the Air Force Academy in Colorado. Those are the biggest ones. And they pay for your education. You're on, your active duty military while you're going to school there. And then you graduate with, basically no student loans or bills, and you serve, 5 years in the military after that. Another common way to pay for college is the ROTC scholarships, where you get a scholarship and it's applied toward a school that has a ROTC unit, and that could be plenty of different public and private universities around the country have ROTC units. And basically, it's a scholarship. They pay for the tuition, and then you graduate with a commitment of usually 5 years to serve in the military after that as an officer. And again, you end up graduating without any college debt or anything like that. And then the third way for some people who aren't ready to go to college right away is to enlist. And then there's different benefits to pay for college after you finish up an enlistment. So if you enlist for 4 years, and then you possibly use the post 9/11 GI Bill, which will pay for tuition, basically up to the state school limit in your in whatever state you're going to college, and again, you basically go to college for free and come out the end of it with debt free. So that's basically the big three areas. Their big three ways are the service academies, the ROTC scholarships, and enlisting and taking advantage of the things like the GI Bill after you get out.
Okay, so let's say I'm a parent of a 15, 16, 17-year-old, and we're thinking military might be an option. Let's start with the academy that you mentioned. Obviously, you graduated from the Naval Academy?
Yes.
So you've been there, done that. Would you recommend it? What was it like for you?
It's hard to say. The thing about the military is a lifestyle that is not for everybody, and so I definitely would not say join the military just to have college paid for. It's a lifestyle that, like I said, it's not for everybody. Can be challenging and demanding, but it's also. It's been good to me because, like I said, I've been doing this one way or another since 1986 when I entered the Naval Academy. It's a challenging time at the academy. So again, because you're basically on duty 24 hours a day and always in uniform, always doing something military. Before school, after school, it's a challenge. They're also very challenging to get into. They're very selective about who gets into the academies. You need to get a nomination from your congressman or senator for the most part to get in. Those are very competitive slots, but they have an awesome education. The Naval Academy right now is ranked very high as far as engineering school and a liberal arts school, and it's just it's a really great education. But the thing that in addition to that, and I guess we could talk about this a little later, is basically just the experience you get from those first few years after you graduate. You're going to be given a lot of responsibility very quickly, and it's mostly it's a good thing. It's a good challenge for someone that age to be given a lot of responsibility and succeed at it. And I really enjoy seeing some of the younger people these days who did the same thing I did years ago. But it's still exciting to see someone just a couple years out of college who's leading people and qualified as whatever it is, a surface warfare officer or whatever it is. It's really exciting, I think.
So if you go to one of these academies, then you're essentially graduate. You've got a commitment that you need to serve, but you're going to be an officer. And then they've got popular majors like engineering. And how early do you need to start? I mean, if you're interested in one of these academies and you need to get appointed, how do you go about that? When would you start working on that? Is that something you work on senior year, junior year?
Well, I think you got to be looking at it in your junior year. That's when people start narrowing down their choices and taking all the tests and SATs and all that kind of stuff, right? And figuring out that path, what it takes to get into the academy. It's but they make their choices each academic year, and you can always you can reapply. You can go to another college and reapply, or if you weren't accepted the first time, sometimes they'll send you to a prep school in order to get you up to speed academically. And then, like you said, the majors were the Naval Academy focuses a lot on the engineering majors, but they have everything, a wide variety, and so the other academies as well. Right.
And then, so how did your application process go? How did you get your appointment, as an example?
Oh, geez, that was a long time ago now. I ended up getting
know someone that knows someone, or were you just able to, send a letter somewhere, or how did that work out for you?
Well, you're, basically everyone in America, and all of these academies take, students from all over America. Everyone in America has, 3 representatives in the federal government. Your congressman in the House of Representatives and 2 senators, and so you can apply to all 3 of them, and they'll advertise that the time of year that they're accepting applications and that kind of stuff, and typically what happens is the congressman will send 10 names forward to the academies that the students are applying to, and then the academies will make their choices out of that group. That's how it usually works most of the time. Mm-hmm. But it's a very it's an open, transparent process as far as how you contact your congressman and what the process is. It's usually well advertised on their in their office website or whatever.
Right. And then I guess another thing that I'm aware of, and maybe you can speak to, is it's not only academics that they look at as far as qualifying to be in the military academies, but also physical and psychological a little bit as well. Can you remember what you went through in that regard?
Well, obviously they want physically fit people. The military can be a physically demanding job, but they're also looking for leadership experience even at the high school level. So whether it's Eagle Scouts or team captains and high school team captains, those count a lot towards successful applicants, and because it shows those are the most successful people at the academies.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, obviously that's highly competitive, then you need to have some, a pretty strong resume to get into some of these types of places. But I guess the other opportunity would be ROTC, which is another way to, get involved. And I guess ultimately, most of the time that would lead to some sort of officer position. Is that correct?
Yes, that's it's a scholarship. So you apply through the recruiting. I think it's through the recruiting offices where you do the applications through.
Right.
And again, those are pretty competitive. Because it is a scholarship, and they're going to pay for all of your schooling until you graduate. But there's basically just more slots for them. Because there are colleges all around the country, and so again, it's still pretty competitive. But you get that scholarship, and you graduate and you got a job right away. Yeah, you're going to be in the military for 5 years, but you get a job right away, and yeah, you're going to be an officer leading people right from the start.
Right.
One thing about for the service academies, you don't have a military commitment during the first 2 years. So if you decide to leave, it's not for you, or it's just too hard, or classes or the lifestyle is just not you. You can leave without a commitment during the first 2 years. For the ROTC, it's 1 year where you don't own anything after before the end of the first year. So it's it's a good way to check things out to see if it's for you. The difference, of course, if you go the RTC route, is that you could stay at the same college. Just you have to start finding some other way to pay for college, pay the tuition. Whereas if you leave the academies, then you're out. You got to go to school somewhere else.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So I guess in a nutshell, can you explain what the difference between being an officer and enlisted is in the military?
Wow. Yeah. So the leadership, for the most part, are the officers, and they're coming after college, usually trained specifically on whatever their skill is, whether it's a pilot or a surface warfare officer or an infantryman or whatever, and they're going to be put into a leadership position pretty young. If you could graduate, in my case in the Marine Corps, you graduate, and by the time you're 22 years old, you're in charge of 40 or 50 other people as an officer, and then the enlisted ranks, most of them are very young. Most of them are on their first tour, most of them are under the age of 25. And when they but they re-enlist and they stick around. The guys who have been around a while, the more seasoned, experienced, and technically proficient guys, reach the higher ranks. And those senior enlisted guys and the officers work together as a good leadership team. So, you bring different skills to the table, essentially. But as an officer, once you're commissioned as an officer, then you have you're going to have the possibility to move on to higher ranks. Obviously, highest being an admiral or general or something. But that's the progression is from the junior officer to senior officer. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So let's say your children, and I think they're relatively young still, but let's say your children were interested in the military. What would you be doing in order to figure out if it's a good fit, or what information would you try and gather, or what advice would you give to your neighbor who was also looking at the military for their children? Is there places to go, questions to ask? What's the next step for a typical parent, do you think?
Well, our case, we're living it, and so our kids see what's going on, and so I guess that's maybe one answer to the question is talk to your friends, your relatives who may have served in the military, and find out what it's like. A lot of times, still funny enough to be like, it's hard. You don't want to do it. Don't even think about it. Run away.
Right.
But for the most part, they'll say the same things that I'm saying right now, is that you'll get a wonderful experience, possibly traveling around the world, put with a lot of leadership experience and responsibility pretty young, and that's really whether you're enlisted or as an officer. So the first thing is to ask people that and trust and seek out their different, their opinions. The other is, though, to think about what it is you want out of it. So, what skills, what do you like? Each of the services has a different set of, traditions and just a way of doing things. And so one might be more conducive to what, your personality is, so, maybe you're better off being in the Navy than in the Marine Corps, or whatever it is finding out, what it is. And then just be aware of all the skills, whether it's as an officer or enlisted. There's dozens of jobs. Not everybody in the Marine Corps is an infantry. A minority of people in the Marine Corps are infantrymen. We have pilots and logisticians and aircraft maintainers and things like that. And the same goes across all the other services. There's a multitude of jobs and career progressions that are possible. So looking into what it is what kind of thing you might want to do while you're in the military, and and again, what that service mentality kind of like, what is it that attracts you to it? So that'd be a big part of it, is trying to figure out what, as much as you can, about what the lifestyle is and how that's going to fit in, how you're going to fit into that.
Right. So I guess for my last question, obviously we see a lot of military on TV in very, Homeland, or, the strike teams. And whenever we're watching some presidential show, then they're, kicking down doors and taking out the terrorists. How much of that is accurate, or are they giving you a complete whitewash of the real world, or what's your thoughts on what you see on TV compared to the life that you actually lived?
It's the Hollywood stuff is always the most learning stuff. I mean, basically there are people doing that. That's a small minority of what's going on. There are guys that are, jumping out of helicopters and kicking down doors, but there's also people that are cooks for a living, and or they drive trucks or they fix airplanes. There's a lot. Like I said, there's just so many options of different jobs in the military, and that comes down to, although it's a dangerous job in a lot of ways, it's not like that all the time. So if you're out in a combat zone, or even just operating on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, those can be pretty dangerous jobs. But you're not doing that all day long, all year long. A lot of times it's just I call it 9 to 5, but it's more like 7 to 4. Monday to Friday kind of thing a lot of times, and it's they don't put that stuff on TV. They don't put the standing around waiting in line for whatever it is on TV.
Right.
But like I said, I think what you don't see is again the experience. Somebody, we have friends who graduated from college 2 years ago, and they've already traveled from here across the Atlantic, across the Mediterranean Sea, been to half a dozen different countries, lived overseas, qualified as a surface warfare officer. So able to not command a ship, but take control of the ship and be in charge of the ship during while you're on watch and stuff like that, and that's just in 2 years since graduating from college. What is their what are your classmates doing 2 years after graduation? And it's not going to be as exciting for most of them. Right. is what I find. And there's definitely a lot of challenges, but if you're adventurous and looking for a challenge, looking for responsibility, it can be a really great life, even for just a short time. Even for if it's just 4 or 5 years. That's, for some people, that's all they need, but they love it. One of the reasons I got interested in the military is because my father enlisted in the 60s, and he only did one enlistment. He only spent 4 years in the Navy. But he thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened to him in his life, and he talked about it, until the day he died. Basically, just that was basically the greatest time he ever had in his life. Probably a lot better than being my parent. But he just talked about like it was this greatest thing, great time he had in the Navy. And it just made a big impression on me. Like, yeah, that sounds really cool. That's something I want to do. And it's worked out. Again, it's worked out well for me, for our family. We've been, like I said, doing this quite a while. So. It's you're right. It's not like it is on the movies, but sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. Like anything, I guess.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I really appreciate all the great information. If people want to learn more about your services or what you do, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, the best way is through my website, militaryfinancialplanner.com. Find out how to email me, find out more about me there, and get in touch.
All right. We'll put links to your website, etc., on our show notes. So I appreciate all the great information.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. All right, that was a great interview with Rob. Hopefully you learned a bit about the military and how that might fit into your college plans. Again, as a reminder, episode 42 is available, where we talk about ROTC, and episode 46 is the GI Bill. So you can go back to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/ Ep101, which is the show notes for this page, and there will be links to those episodes, as well as links to other military-related information. As always, we appreciate you listening. If you could leave us a review at iTunes, it's greatly appreciated. Also, please remember that you can listen to podcasts by downloading them in various formats. Using a smartphone or iPad, you can get an app that can manage podcasts for you, which allows you to download and listen on the go. And I encourage families to understand how that works. And we also have a podcast index available at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/podcast index. And that has all 101 episodes in it, and we'll continue to update that. So if we're in the future, and that's where you can go and get a list of episodes, who the guests were, a little basic information about what they're about. So if you're looking for a particular situation, you can go back to that index and find what you're looking for. All right, that's all we have for today. I appreciate you listening. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.